Well, greetings, Mr. Colazar's forensic science class. We're going to start into our new chapter on handwriting analysis, forgery, and counterfeiting. And as we begin into this chapter, what we're going to be looking at today is going to start out in handwriting analysis. But to begin with, we're going to look at the 12 types of handwriting analysis and the characteristics when we're looking at a document. We're going to look at each of those examples, basically looking at breaking those into 3 different types of handwriting. We'll look at the major goals of forensic science or handwriting analysis, distinguish between the terms of forgery and fraudulence throughout the chapter, identify several ways that businesses try to prevent check forgery, and we'll also look into, it's not on here, but counterfeiting. So that would be our last bullet to include. Now, as we're going document analysis, examining and comparing a questioned document with a known material. So we're going to be comparing something that's known to something unknown to see if it actually matches up, such as a signature or writing. Now, experts in the field are going to look at things like computer handwriting, computer printout, commercial printing, the paper, the ink. So many things to be looking at. We're looking at a threatening note, a ransom note, suicide note, illegally binding contracts. There's many other things we could actually look at there. The look can be using to identify who the author of the document was. So first off, a little history, forensics analysis. The 1930s, Charles Lindbergh, what's called the Lindbergh case, was one of the first times that there was any use of handwriting analysis. We'll be talking about that in class later on. Now, 1999, first time that the U.S. Court of Appeals actually used handwriting to be an expert testimony. It is still controversial, meaning that you can debate if it actually is somebody's handwriting or is not somebody's handwriting. It is admissible in court of law, but scientific guidelines need to be followed, and that's what we're going to be looking at. Just like, no, it looks the same. We need some data and information behind it. Analysis for handwriting has been used by Scotland Yard over in Great Britain, the FBI, the Secret Service. So many different groups have used forensics handwriting analysis. Now, a couple ideas. Graphology versus handwriting analysis. A lot of times you hear about graphology. Graphology would be the study and analysis of a handwriting to assess the trait of the person's personality. So it's not necessarily accepted in forensic science. That's kind of saying if somebody writes big and loopy, if they got a lot of, swirls into their writing, or if they write really small writing, maybe they're more introverted. So what we're looking at is using their personality. Now, that's not really an accepted part of forensic science. What we're going to work on is handwriting analysis. Handwriting analysis is looking at design to determine the authenticity of the signature or document without concern of the person's personality. So this is the one that we are going to be using in forensic science. Now, to begin with, one of the things we're going to be focusing in on is there's 12 major characteristics in our textbook that we're going to look at when it comes to finding out specific traits and information about a person's handwriting. These are in the textbook on page 280 to 282. Add that in because that's important, those pages there. So we're going to look at different ideas. The line quality, do the letters flow? Are they erratic and shaky? The spacing, are they equally spaced or are they crowded? The ratio of the height to width, is it consistent or inconsistent? Is the writing continuous or does the pen kind of lift up, move around? Connecting letters, the capital and lowercase letters, are they connected? Are they continuous? Are the letters complete? The letter begins and ends on the page, or is part of the letters missing? And then we'll continue with the other 6 of these, and then we'll be looking at the formatting, the letter form, or the line form as we're going forward. Is it cursive and printed letters, or both? The pen pressure, is it kind of equally applied or unequally applied with the downward strokes? This is going to be important when it comes to an auto pen versus a regular pen, with somebody actually writing or a machine is. Slant, how they actually have their letters slanted. If it's to the left or to the right, or does it vary, can tell how the person or what hand they use to write with. Line habits, is the text on, below, or above the line? Is there any fancy curls or loops, uniqueness to each of the letters? Placement of the I's, the T's, how they're dotted are going to be all things that are going to be analyzed as we're going forward. Now, when it comes to handwriting examination, two writings are the product of one person if the similarities are unique and no explainable differences are found. Now, a lot of times we're going to look to examine the question document to detectable traits, excuse me, and record them. Now, we're going to look to obtain a suspect's writing sample. We're going to call this an exemplar. So an exemplar is a known sample. And compare it with the traits found in the questionable document. So we're going to have a comparison from one to another. Remember that word exemplar. Draw conclusions about the authorship between the document based on those comparisons. Now we'll always be looking at a couple things. The hardware, that means what type of ink and paper, pens, pencils, the typewriter or printer that was used, and then a visual examination of actually looking at whatever's being written or documented. From there, a couple of future ideas: technology, biometric pads. Computerized pads are going to learn to recognize how a person signs his or her name depending on the speed, the pressure, and rhythm. So it's even different than the signature pads we see now. Forgeries are recognized, even the detections of slight differences. Computerized analysis is a thing that they're looking into, comparing between, so it takes out the human's objectiveness between the handwritings when it comes to being compared there. And our last part, when it comes to document alterations, even if you obliterate, removal of writing, say you kind of erase it or kind of write over it, we have different ways of actually bringing that information back. So if you write something out and then you scribble over the top of it, there are ways of us actually getting that information back. And so we can go with some UV or infrared light, microscopic examination, digital processing, and then from there we have oblique lighting we're going to work on in class, or electrostatic detection apparatus, which actually can be used to find out what was written on another page of information. So that's our beginning of our chapter 10 on handwriting analysis, counterfeiting, and forgery.